Chapter 482, Bodies Chasing Heads. Franca shook off the dizziness, induced by the terrifying roar, and sighed from the bottom of her heart. As expected, the gray fog here provides protection. Without it, facing a roar that could harm their spirit body and affect their minds would result in losing control, turning into monsters, or immediate death. Praise the fool, Lumion openly expressed his faith. He then reminded her in an icy tone, but the hidden dangers here might be more terrifying than the previous roar. Franca fell silent for a few seconds before speaking in an encouraging tone. Hidden dangers are preferable to those that have already surfaced. Let's avoid triggering them. If nothing else occurs, we'll stay in this corner and wait for help. While Jenna and Anthony Reed harbored doubts about the strategy of passivity, they hesitated to venture deep into Fourth Epoch Trier and reluctantly accepted the plan that wasn't really a plan. In the eerie silence, Anthony was the first to regain composure. He pointed at the dark wooden box and stated, "I'm not sure of its purpose. A simple, temporary touch doesn't seem to have any obvious negative effects." As for the coins, their significance was apparent. A quick glance and rough calculation revealed a total of 312 Viral d'Or and 26 Capit. Franca leaned against a collapsed pillar in the shadows, her eyes fixed on the mysterious dark wooden box. What the hell is this thing? It was obviously no ordinary container. Its appearance suggested it held some kind of mysterious power. Lumion and Anthony turned their attention to the demoness of pleasure simultaneously. Lumion chuckled, "I should be the one asking you that." Franca exclaimed, "There was nothing I could do. I couldn't spare time for spirit channeling, and this place isn't connected to the real spirit world. I can't perform magic mirror divination. To understand the abilities, effects, state, and potential drawbacks of these two items, I'll have to experiment with them myself repeatedly. Of course, if we encounter an artisan, many of our problems might be solved." She gestured towards Jenna, saying, "Just like the black primordial demoness figurine, it undoubtedly has other functions. For instance, it allows the holder to create mirror substitution. As for mine, apart from providing a certain anti-divination and early warning effect, it can only be used as a supplicant during rituals. They're both figurines, differing only in color and orientation. Why such a significant disparity?" Franca avoided mentioning why she didn't employ various methods to gather information about the black primordial demoness figurine. The unspoken understanding among the group was clear. In their current situation, ensuring their safety took precedence over risking injury or adverse effects to test their spoils of war. Any mishap could lead to dire consequences, potentially even death in the experiment. As a heavy silence settled among Jenna and the others, Franca sighed inwardly. The black figurine clearly is problematic, and its mysterious origin is intriguing. It explains why the demoness sect wants me to investigate what Gardner had smuggled in through the underground tunnels. If I hand it over, will the demoness sect reward me with the affliction potion and pledge assistance for my ritual, or will they choose to silence me? Lumion stroked his chin, addressing Anthony Reed. "In that case, keep the Viral d'Or. We'll distribute the remaining spoils of war when we return to the surface." Anthony inquired further, "Should we wrap it in a cloak and place it on the ground before taking it when we leave?" Lumion smiled and gestured at the charred bone flute. "Otherwise, you can also carry it with you. This way, we might witness the abilities of a deceased. Philip died in a hurry and didn't have time to show us. Of course, judging from his condition at the time of death, the holder of the item will most likely be the recipient of those abilities in the form of a curse." Anthony, unfazed by the mockery, pulled up the blood-stained and tattered black cloak, wrapping it around the bone flute and the small wooden box once more. Lumion, with a thoughtful expression, poked his head out and looked at the abnormally narrow street. "If we encounter an enemy we find challenging to handle later, we can consider throwing these two items to him. It might have a miraculous effect. General Philip will be very pleased to know that he would still be of use after death. It might bring about a curse of fate." Despite the tense atmosphere, Lumion's constant mockery of General Philip brought a slight amusement to Jenna. "Damn it, General Philip is already dead. There's no need to harp on about him." Before Lumion could respond to Jenna, two tragic screams pierced the air. The cries emanated from the same location, filled with undisguised fear. Soon after, two figures rushed into the narrow street, as if pursuing an unidentified flying object hovering in the air. Franca, alongside Lumion, peered out of the shadows, her expression freezing at the sight. The two figures, a man and a woman, were decapitated, their necks mangled, devoid of any signs of bones. Chasing them were two heads, displaying pure fear and dragging bloody, tail-like spines behind them. One head belonged to a man with puffed-up cheeks resembling a squirrel. He chewed on long, thick black hair that emerged from his dark brown eyes, nostrils, and ears. Similar hair grew from the headless body chasing him, denser and more exaggerated, resembling seaweed. The other head belonged to a beautiful woman with black hair and brown eyes. She flew forward frantically, coughing and shaking out resplendent starlight. Gravel in the surroundings, sent flying by the pursuit, swayed as if in slow motion. Suddenly, the two heads and bodies, about to climb over a collapsed building and exit the narrow street, froze. The heads shook in confusion, attempting to dispel a discomfort. The headless corpses raised their hands, clutching their left chests. In mere seconds, the two heads, with bloody spines trailing behind them, plummeted into the collapsed black house, their bodies crashing onto the stacked rocks. A heavy silence fell upon Lumion and the others. After a few seconds, Lumion scoffed. "See, this is what happens when you venture deep into Fourth Epoch Trier." "Do you suspect they're residents of the hostel?" Jenna inquired thoughtfully. Lumion replied with a smirk, "Otherwise. Where else could you find such fresh heads and bodies in an ancient ruin that's been buried for a millennium or two?" This brought back memories of Supervisor Olsen. He had been in this state when he first appeared. Now, Lumion was almost certain that Olsen was a true monster, with a head and body that could be separated. Franca also recalled Gardner Martin's servants. She withdrew her gaze and pondered for a moment before stating, "Why do bodiless heads still cough, as if they're sick? What happened to them at the end seems like a cerebral infarction. The two headless bodies show signs of cardiac arrest. Is this the work of the sick church's evil gods bestowed, or is there another murderer?" Right, a sequence 5 of the demoness pathway is called affliction. It can spread various illnesses, and I can enter this place with the primordial demoness figurine and the ancient silver mirror. This place clearly has a lot to do with the demoness pathway. Could the high-level power leaking out cause monsters to fall ill and die? "Not bad, you still have some intelligence at critical moments," Lumion praised mockingly. Jenna, on the other hand, rejoiced. "Fortunately, we didn't venture too deep. Otherwise, who knows when we'd fall ill and die." Lumion smiled at her. "Why do you think we're not currently surrounded by disease?" But we didn't cough." Jenna's voice trailed off as she glanced at the hidden pocket of her clothes. Inside was the pitch-black primordial demoness figurine. Franca also peered into her pocket, as if she could discern the bone-carved primordial demoness figurine through the fabric. Anthony turned to Lumion and sought confirmation. "Are you suggesting that the Fourth Epoch Trier is plagued with illnesses, and we're unharmed because we're carrying the two figurines?" Lumion spread his hands and said, "I believe this explanation makes more sense. Beyond the gray fog, at the edge of the Fourth Epoch's Trier ruins." In the small brown suitcase, Gardner Martin's blood-stained face suddenly opened, revealing Gardner Martin clad in silver armor, reflected in its eyes. It opened its mouth and expelled a blazing white fireball. The distance between them was so close that Gardner Martin couldn't dodge at all. All he could do was lean back, attempting to avoid the target's initial attack. Boom! Gardner Martin was sent flying by the massive explosion. The spiderweb-like crack on the chest of the silver armor shattered, tearing through the skin and flesh below. This strike was akin to hitting Gardner Martin's vital points. Had it not been for the Pride armor, which absorbed most of the damage, he would have perished on the spot. However, this meant that the Pride armor lost its protection over the chest for a period. Gardner Martin's bloodied head flew up, dragging along a bloody spine. On the other side, Olsen's headless corpse stood up once more. Gardner Martin's head aimed for the empty neck stump and inserted the ghastly white spine. Amidst a cracking sound, This Gardner Martin, seemingly from hell, twisted his neck and smiled sinisterly at Gardner Martin, who had already changed positions and condensed a large number of crimson fire ravens that were nearly white. Olsen is long dead. I've been controlling his head and body. In the future, I'll replace you. In the wilderness, the ground trembled violently, and blazing cracks slithered into the distance like fiery serpents. The figures of Magician and Justice appeared.